Hi folks, this is Donald. So I've been quite keen to get into nature sketching more. It's something that I've been thinking about for quite a while, but the idea of doing it has been put on the back burner largely because it looked too complicated. It's not something I have any frame of reference on. I haven't done any courses on nature sketching. I haven't done any nature sketching tutorials or even read a book about it. So I have decided just to jump in and see where it goes, drawing entirely instinctively. And if you are new to nature sketching and would like to give it a go yourself, or maybe you've never even thought about it but might see this as a spark to give it a try, then this little exercise I found was really helpful. So what I'm trying to do here obviously is draw a red rose, keeping it nice and simple. There's no full scene to have to draw, it's just one object, really studying that object and trying to come up with a way that will look representative of the rose without having to worry too much about being entirely accurate. As I say, I am drawing this from instinct with no knowledge of really how I should be doing this, and as you will see in the end, it does turn out fairly well. It does. If you look at it, you will see, oh, that's a rose. So how did I go about this? The first thing I did was I started in the centre of the rose and I worked my way out. So maybe you won't see too clearly, but right in the middle of the rose there is a little triangular shape where one of the petals has been obscured by another petal cutting across. So I used the little triangular shape as my centre point and then drew everything else around it coming out from that. And what I wasn't to know when I started out was just how important that little triangle would be, because when you're drawing each little petal, it can be quite easy, I found, to get lost in where you are. So what I kept doing was pausing, going back to look at where I was in relation to that little triangle in the middle. And then that helped me work out what to draw next, or where I should be drawing the thing that I'm drawing at the moment. And I found it a very helpful exercise just to study something and try and replicate it on the page as closely as I can. And you can apply this method to literally anything that you draw. If you're drawing a street scene, you can apply the same method. It's really observing what you're seeing in front of you and trying to replicate it on the page. And in some respects, I found this easier than drawing a street scene or architecture or anything like that, because when you're drawing nature, there's no perspective to think about. If it's not 100% accurate, that's not going to be noticed because it is an entirely organic, natural subject that you're drawing, and it's not like anyone could say, well, that doesn't look right, that leaf is in the wrong place, or that petal is a different shape to reality. It is in some respects a much more simplified way of sketching, because you can just do whatever you want, and if it doesn't follow exactly what you see in reality, then it doesn't matter. But if you do manage to replicate it exactly, then great. There isn't really any right or wrong with this. And if you do happen to make a really obvious mistake, then because it's a natural thing that you're drawing, like, you can just hide it with squiggles or make it look like an extra twig coming out, or I'll draw a leaf or something to hide whatever the obvious mistake is if it's really jarring, but otherwise you won't even notice it. So once I'd drawn in the stem and the leaves, and I didn't draw all the leaves, just a few to be representative of what I was seeing, I then went in and added some water droplets. Now, I wouldn't say that the water droplets were entirely convincing looking, they were just circles, really. I think that's probably something that would come with experience. You'd be able to make those droplets look more convincing, but I was very happy on the other hand with how the leaves turned out. All I was doing here was the line down the middle and then some very light scratchy lines diagonally to create the leaf effect. That really does look like a leaf as soon as you put those lines on, and I wasn't pressing as hard with the pen as I was with the outer lines. And that's something I really like about drawing with fountain pens, is you can do that by adjusting the pressure that you're applying to the page. I quite liked the fact that it was slightly off-centered. That wasn't intentional. I don't use any pencil planning now, so I quite liked how that turned out with lots of white space to the side and above. I then added in a few more squiggles and dashes just to fill it out a bit, and then it was time to do a bit of shading. So I'm using Faber-Castell India ink markers. These are Pitt Artist brush pens, and I started off with the Cold Grey 3. Within the rose itself, you'll see there are darker areas, and I wanted to try and give it a bit of depth. And I didn't get this entirely right, I don't think. I was just trying to show where the shadows are and give it a bit more of a three-dimensional quality. And this is exactly the same technique that I use when I'm drawing street scenes or buildings or whatever it happens to be in urban scenes. I'm following the exact same principles here. And that does bring up a good point, actually. If you were sitting in the real world doing this, I don't know, you could be sitting in a garden sketching, you could be sitting in the woods. That is still urban sketching, even though it's nature, because urban sketching doesn't necessarily mean urban. It's not about urban scenes. The principle of it was to be sketching on location. And obviously I'm not sketching on location at the moment. I could now go out into the woodlands, and it's something I'm quite intrigued to try if I can, because Scotland is absolutely full of woodlands. I've spent a long part of my life living in Perthshire, Scotland, which is called Big Tree Country. There are lots and lots of nature scenes that I could try, and having tried this and figured out that I can draw things like flowers, then I suppose there's no reason why I can't draw trees and woodland scenes and mountains and anything from nature, I suppose. So that's something I'm looking forward to exploring that I hadn't tried before. I was a bit put off by how complicated it was. I didn't know where to begin. And now having done it, I feel like, oh, it's not as hard as it seems. So if you're in the same boat as me and you think it looks too complicated, then hopefully this video might give you some inspiration and ideas to go and try some nature sketching yourself and not worry about the end result. Just get into the way of it and see how you get on. Because that's really, for me, that's what it's all about. It's trying new things and just seeing what happens. And for more sketchy inspiration like this, you can click on this video right here, and I will see you in the next one.